Alright, so you've done your combat stretch and your 90-90. Now we're going to get into a little bit of activation on the hips in order to get you to square the hips, open up the rear side a little bit, and then we're going to switch legs, square the hips, engage the core, and sit back and just kind of engage, activate the quads, and put a little bit of resistance and intensity or intention on the hip complex as well. Okay, so you will need a band. If you don't have a band, I'll show you how to do this in a minute with your mobility stick or broomstick. Okay, but ideally grab a couple of these. What's this? I think this is like a 20-pound band or something like that, a mini band. Okay, so I'm going to anchor it. This is a little bit high really, but it's kind of the lowest point I've got. I really want it at about waist height if I can. Okay, so if you've got your TRX straps, you could use that anchor point to slide it down the door frame, but this will do really. This isn't so bad. So I'm going to get in it. Okay, I'm going to get opposite that anchor point, put as much tension as I can for it to pull me forwards a little bit. So I'm in hyperextension here. Okay, I'm going to get into an isometric lunge, and I want to be able to straighten myself up so I'm pulling back against that resistance. Nothing too heavy or tight, but I can feel a nice pull. The lower I sit, I can feel a nice pull in my rear quad, okay, and it's pulling my rear leg nice and straight and narrow down that corridor, okay, and I'm going to sit in that ISO lunge, hold that for 5 or 6 seconds, and then I can come back out of it, maybe step back a little bit further, okay, split stance, turn, square the hip, turn that rear foot to square that hip, and then sit into that lunge, and I'll feel a nice pull. Again, it's pulling me forwards. If I let it, it'll pull me forwards, so I need to control with my core, keeping my core tight, pulling my hips back, keeping them square, maintain that, sit into it a little bit more if I want. Okay, you want to go for 3 of those for 5 seconds each. So we'll call that 3 for the interest of time, and then I'll switch my stance. Fairly simple, right? I'm just going to switch my stance, put some tension in the band. Try not to go, this is a common mistake that we see a lot of the time, because I've just done my right side on any of these stretches. Once I've done one side, I jump into the next side at that same kind of intensity that I just finished. And that's not right, is it? I've done that myself right now. I want to put just a little bit of resistance here so that I can give my left side a chance to catch up, get loose, get limber, sit in there for 3 to 5 seconds. Then I can start to increase the range or the intensity for these mobility kind of movements, okay? So try not to just jump in on the opposite side where the previous side left off, okay? Give yourself the chance to get loose, get limber first, and then you can progress a little bit with these stretches, okay? So kind of 3 to 5 seconds in that isometric hold for 3 of those ISO resistance band lunges, okay? If you don't have a resistance band yet, you can use either of the kind of sticks that you've got. I would recommend that you just get a cheap broomstick, because this is obviously a lot shorter than my mobility stick, and this is quite good for these kind of movements, okay? If you don't have a band, or even if you do have a band, it's nice to vary it, but let's use the mobility stick for now. I'm going to grip the mobility stick, not at the ends, because that's too wide for my little wingspan. I'm going to grip it somewhere in the middle. I'm going to sit into that lunge, pull my shoulders back, and I'm trying to stretch this bar. If you can imagine that I'm actually pulling the bar out as if it's an extender, okay? Or like unsheathing a sword. That's what I want to be imagining here. So I'm going to, again, split my stance, square my hips, unsheath the sword, sit the rear knee down, and now I'm going to turn over my front knee and come back again, okay? And that will work on loosening your lumbar spine for this next movement. I think it's the prone scorpion, okay? You could sit over the rear knee as well if you want and come back to 0, but I quite like sitting over the front knee. Puts a little bit more flexion and rotation in the trunk that way, okay? Again, just go 3 times and then switch your stance. Mobility stick, I'll show you this shorter stick here for this one. If I've got a shorter stick, I don't need to unsheath the sword. I can just kind of squash and concentrate, and that makes it a little bit easier really on that turn, okay? There's less forces at play. If I'm trying to pull apart, I'm pulling myself around here, so I don't like that as much. You might want to squeeze in on a shorter stick and go over the front knee, okay, in that isometric hold. Those are your ISO lunges, either with a band or mobility stick or a short broomstick, okay? Get after those 3 on each side. Let's look at the next move.